Activists have, lately, been attempting to destroy priceless cultural artworks in an attempt to draw the world's attention to the problem of oil. To some, this may seem a very extreme measure, and certainly I would never advocate doing something like this, because you will go to jail and lose your freedom. Moreover, if you succeed, you have destroyed something irreplaceable. But I think that's actually what they're trying to say. Oil has already taken our freedom, and it is destroying something irreplaceable, something of far greater value than these pictures made of oil-based paint. Is such a form of protest necessary, however? Do the ends justify the means? No matter where you stand on the issue of their form of protest, I would respectfully like to express their side as I see it, and perhaps by the end of this you may be as angry as they are. And I hope you protest, however, by choosing to put your money into renewables instead. Is oil a forever thing? Well, of course not. Aren't they always jacking up the price because it's running out? What do we continue to use oil for when we know exactly what it is and what it does to the world around us? Oil is only energy as a third or fourth priority anyway. Oil is first and foremost a system of control, with the literally astronomical amount of energy falling on Earth every day. With the increase in technologies which use energy more and more efficiently, one might be led to wonder why we still use gasoline-powered cars. In a world where everything is digital, everything is solid state, why is it that we still move ourselves to work in a machine powered by explosions? That's what a car is. It's a machine powered by explosions. Thousands of explosions per minute harnessed to turn a crank on your car, requiring a volatile fuel which produces noxious, dangerous fumes. Doesn't this seem a little barbaric in an age of globally interconnected data networks and AI? But the reason isn't that the technology isn't out there to replace this aging jalopy. No, it's that the fuel it uses is easily regulated. There is a limited supply, clear ownership, and universal demand. And as demand increases and supply does not, price increases. How did this happen to us? The same way almost all substance addictions begin: the use of an addictive substance. There's an old conspiracy theory that in the early 20th century in Los Angeles, the oil industry and the automotive industry created shell corporations which bought up all the streetcars and retired them so that everyone had to buy an automobile. That's why California now practically requires a car to get around in and has so many thousands of miles of highway. They purposefully removed public transportation options to increase dependence on a product they owned. The story is perhaps a legend, but the resonance of that story is that we all feel the sting of the purposeful restriction of the growth of electric automotive technology on behalf of big oil to ensure that other options are never even allowed to compete in the open market. Gas-powered cars are a great gateway appliance. Anyone you sell a car to becomes an unwilling addict to petroleum. The cars don't run on anything else, and oil is the only game in town to power them. Electric is only beginning to eke its way into the market. If you want to get to work, you got to buy gas. If you want to get the kids to school, you're paying for petroleum. And if you don't want to have to live right next to where you work, you're filling your tank with their crude. And worse than that, oil is not just addictive as a fuel. It's actually even worse for the body politic as a raw material for manufacturing. Imagine a life without plastic. Can you? Plastic is seemingly irreplaceable, and it's made from fossil fuels. The water bottle you drink from is made of oil and natural gas, made by power generated with petroleum or coal and made of petroleum. You drink water daily from a natural gas and oil bottle. Plastic is a result of the rapid advancement in petrochemicals by motivated extortion energy companies. Imagine if they had just spent all that money researching free energy sources and renewable manufacturing materials which biodegrade quickly. No. Instead, they just spend more money on learning how to exploit even more of the barrel. It is unrestricted economic warfare, a wild frontier of profit and power, and the choice to transition to better options isn't something they even want us to know exists, let alone consider. Look around you. Think about how much plastic there really is. The only parts of your car that aren't mostly plastic are the frame, engine, and transmission. You have a vehicle made of oil, using oil to take you someplace where you will have to use oil to get back from, driving over oil. Yes, asphalt is the sticky black residue that is left over from the process of processing crude oil. Pretty much everything around you is a byproduct of oil refinement and natural gas chemical engineering, even the fertilizer they use to grow our food. So considering the dependence we have all developed on petroleum, imagine what would happen if someone just said, no more oil for you. What would happen to our society if the amount of available oil only simply dropped to half? The shockwave in prices would cascade up the economic food chain. It would be a national implosion. Food prices would skyrocket, infrastructure would fall apart, manufacturing of even the most basic, simple commodities that we enjoy for relatively low prices right now would cease. Plastic would just be too expensive to make these things with. Think about the contents of a dollar store and remove the plastic. Think about the modern practice of healthcare and remove the plastic. And you see what I'm talking about. Our addiction to the convenience and availability of petroleum for so many needs has not only made us incredibly vulnerable, it must have made us suicidal as a species. What other explanation can there be? If you want to live, you don't destroy your own habitat. The air over major cities looks like a poker game in full swing in a Rodney Dangerfield movie, and the news has to give air quality reports so people with asthma can be warned the very air might kill them. Oil emissions and CO2 aren't even the worst part in the short-term view. The immediate consequences are right in your face. There's a blanket of discarded plastic water bottles and plastic trash the size of a continent, essentially a blanket of chemically stabilized petroleum just sitting on the Pacific Ocean and gathering more and more mass every day. You know what's worse? There's actually several. Most oceans have them now. Floating islands of plastic garbage that takes hundreds of years to biodegrade, if it ever will, and nature has little idea of what to do with the refuse oil creates. Perhaps that's why it was buried so deep and hard to get in the first place. So we have, thus far, sacrificed the freedom to purchase anything else. We have forsaken all other materials for plastic, creating an environmental nightmare for all our earthbound roommates and made breathing a luxury, all for the convenience of petroleum. And where do we get this oil from? We purchase this vital commodity mostly from countries in the most geopolitically unstable regions on Earth. Now, what is led to ask? Are these regions unstable because of prior political disputes, or is the presence of liquid gold somehow stimulating competition for ownership? The presence of oil on your land usually means wealth for someone else and trouble for you. We are at the whim of whoever is in charge of the land the golden crude lives in, and if they decide to turn off the taps, we have a choice. Do we let them take our favorite vice away and deal with the consequences, or do we just get rid of them and put in people who will play ball? Well, that's right. We get rid of them and replace them with people who play ball. Using oil is not only expensive, addictive, and harmful to the entire ecosystem that supports us, it requires blood to sustain the supply of. This is not hyperbole. No one will debate me that this is a historical fact. So oil's everywhere. It's used for everything. Our entire way of life depends on it. It is lethal to the environment in ways we haven't even begun to discover, and held mostly by people who really don't have our best interests at heart. So the most logical way forward in this situation would be to start replacing oil to regain environmental stability, economic independence, and overall societal resilience. That isn't the way we're going, and the reason is that oil isn't a commodity when seen in the big picture. Oil is a system of control. Oil is the value in the US dollar. Oil holds up the entire economy of the globe. Everyone needs energy, everyone needs raw material for manufacturing, and everyone needs heat in the winter. As long as we need oil, people who own it effectively rule the world. They forcibly suppress all other candidates for energy and manufacturing materials by either buying or bullying them out. That's why you have a car moved by detonations which has Wi-Fi. That's why there's a never-ending stream of useless disposable products and shiny pieces of plastic emerging like confetti from every factory in the developed world, which are consumed with great enthusiasm and discarded just as enthusiastically. Because as long as you're consuming, you're serving them. As long as you need oil, you work for them. You are dependent for your food, your water, and your livelihood on their beneficence because they have shut off the tap on every other form of energy but theirs. And every single thing you buy in any store in almost any nation on Earth, you're giving a percentage to big oil somehow. It's a fact. And to give you some idea of how deep the contamination of corruption caused by the unlimited wealth and power produced by petroleum dependence is, you really need to understand only one thing. Everything on Earth, any human system or need, could be powered and met by any of a multitude of sources of free energy and low-cost, sustainably generated building and manufacturing materials that you wanted to choose from. The technology would eventually meet the demand just like oil did, scaled from cities to homes. We could easily find a way to power them and new materials to make them with if we had the will. There is one notable exception to this rule. You can only power a modern military with oil, and it is designed as such. The math of moving such big things fast requires petroleum in obscene quantities. Tanks, battleships, planes, and troop transports only run on oil. And there's no real movement to change that. In fact, we build more every year. But what goal is so important that we need such powerful and devastating arsenals of oil-powered destruction to accomplish? What has the military of the United Western Nations been turned to for almost 100 years? The patrol of, protection of, and even the seizure of land where there is oil. These titans of industry, these savvy businessmen and princes of nations belie their real intent. It isn't about money for money's sake. It's about absolute power, and they have it. They have absolute power, and they will be happy to use force to protect it in as little or as large a dose as you require. It is unlike any other system of control ever invented by despots. It is on another level entirely. Yet, it is one we willingly somehow continue to subscribe to and fund the growth of. Oil is control. They own oil, and by proxy, they own you. And if you wish to regain your freedom, if you wish to stop supporting the destruction of an irreplaceable, priceless treasure, you also have to destroy your cherished picture of oil. Metaphorically will suffice, thank you. As a form of protest instead, perhaps you could simply vote for those who have solid energy plans for a fossil-free future, and try to change your decision at the point of purchase for energy or goods.